Hey, what's up guys? It's DW here again. Today I'm going to dig in a little bit deeper with my DIY spray putty method, cover setup, safety, talk a little bit more about the chemicals, and show you this awesome alternative for doing my method. It's in today's video, so come check it out. What is up everyone? Back at it again. It is DW Darkwing Dad, fresh off that DIY putty video. It's definitely making its way around, seeing a lot of positive feedback and seeing some neutral or negative feedback. So that is the whole meaning for this video, but also showing you some different alternatives to when doing this method. I did get a little bit of, harsh feedback. Some people saying there wasn't proper PPE, saying that acetone is super dangerous. I'm gonna cover all that in this video and go over a more proper PPE style setup. Of course, I did the video for demonstration. I was trying to give you guys good visuals. Kind of skipped over the PPE part a little bit quick. I did mention it. I tried adding subtitles, but today I'm going to explain a little bit more about acetone. I cover more proper setup, where to use it, where not to use it. So today's gonna be strictly safety and demo day, plus this new battery charge airbrush, something with the gravity feed would be better. My original airbrush was a siphon. So this is a real awesome cost-effective option. You don't need a separate compressor. It's completely battery powered, so we're gonna test this out today. I have not even used it yet, so I have no idea if it's gonna work, but we're gonna find out today. So the first thing we're gonna do is just cover proper PPE, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about acetone, some of the safety precautions you could take. Let me show you a more proper setup and explain some things along the way. Let's get into it. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about proper PPE. First time I did this video, it was just a demo. So some of the feedback I was getting is that people were saying that you shouldn't mix acetone with the Bondo glazing putty. However, if you look up the SDS on the Bondo glazing putty, there is already acetone in it, and putting more acetone in it is not dangerous at all. You're not gonna make some noxious chemical that is going to give you cancer instantaneously or make you pass out or anything like that. Now, it is very true that high amounts of acetone can be very dangerous. Without proper PPE, acetone can cause damage to your respiratory system, your nervous system. This can happen over years and years of exposure at very high concentrated amounts of acetone. We here are using very small amounts. However, we still want to take precaution. Believe it or not, 99% of the spray cans that you use every day contain things like alcohols, acetones, lacquers, polyurethanes, and catalytic hardeners. So often things like Bondo filler primer and 2K clears can actually be even more dangerous than standard acetone. Of course, I'm not condoning no PPE for this method. You definitely need it. A lot of you may not know, but I've been in the automotive industry for 15 years. I still use solvents, chemicals, paint spraying, things like that in my business daily. So I've been around these things for a long time. For acetone, however, when you're using a low amount, it's good to understand how acetone works. Acetone actually has the lowest intermolecule exchange rate than any other solvent out there. What does that mean? It basically evaporates almost instantaneously. Now, it is not false to say that when you aerate acetone, it is going to be in the atmosphere. However, it doesn't displace oxygen. If you do something like, spray something with Bondo filler primer or paint it, you know how it smells for days and days and days? That's because the solvents are still present and they're still gassing. So what that means is you're still being exposed to these fumes. Being exposed to those fumes of something that you just painted is really no different than being exposed to it from the get-go, and that if you just take proper PPE with acetone, it's perfectly safe. So I had mentioned things like nitrile gloves. The mask I was using, which is this right here, this 84A 5460 mask does still restrict 95% of vapors. Now I know what you're saying, it doesn't restrict all of it. Hey, there's really nothing on the market that is going to 100% safeguard you. If you want to do it the right way and the proper way, you should always wear a respirator. The reason I didn't in my initial video was just simply to demonstrate. I've been around a lot of these heavy solvents for years, and odor is one of the first things you pick up. If you smell it, you need something stronger. You really don't smell acetone because as it aerates, it gets completely dissipated. Do I think this is 100%? Absolutely not. Do I think this is? Yes. Always want to go with a respirator. Like I said, it doesn't matter what you're using. Anything with an aerosol that has acetone, lacquers, any sort of heavy solvents can definitely affect you over time. So a respirator is always going to be the safest way to go. I want to do it in a well ventilated area. Obviously I did it here in my shed. I did have the door open. I did have the fan going. It wasn't shown in the video, but always have a well circulated and ventilated area when you're spraying this stuff. Do not spray this in your house. Do not spray it in your garage, anywhere where there might be pets, kids, anything like that. However, think of it this way. How many of you have moms? How many of your moms got their nails done when you were a kid or still get their nails done today? Whenever your mom cleaned her nails, was she wearing gloves? Was she wearing a mask? No, because low amounts isn't as dangerous. Can it still do danger? Absolutely. But in low amounts like what we're using, it is the safer option, but you should still definitely wear some PPE. If you try other solvents like lacquer will thin this putty down. However, lacquer will take longer to dissipate. It doesn't evaporate as quick. Possibly breathing these particles in, it's more likely to do with lacquer than it is acetone. Other thinners like paint thinners, they'll work okay, but same thing, they linger in the atmosphere. Things like mineral spirits, naphtha, those are for oil-based things. They're not gonna reduce this putty down. Acetone really is the best option. We just wanna make sure we are taking the proper, safe methods when doing this. Always better to do more than to do less. Now that we covered that, let me show you a little bit better setup with one of my Wagner paint tents here to show you proper ventilation that will eliminate any sort of vapors or anything that may be lingering around in the atmosphere. So let me get this set up and explain a little bit more. All right, so the first thing we have to do is set up this new airbrush. So in the box here, we have the battery powered compressor. So this is where all your air comes from right here. We have the actual airbrush itself. And it comes with a optional hose, which is on the bottom here. So you can see if you want to do the hose, you can do the hose setup. If not, you can just screw it right on. Also comes with a cleaning kit. What drew me to this is the size of the receptacle. So obviously it has a small, medium, and large, but these are all gravity feed. So I mentioned in my part 1 video that something with a larger reservoir that is gravity feed would be ideal. Here I found it. Actually has the top, so it seals it off. So if you are worried about any additional vapors by putting a larger amount of the acetone putty mix, it's sealed off here. PSI wise, this is a rating of anywhere from 10 to 32. So it's got the adjustment knob on the back here, left or right, obviously lefty loosey, righty tighty. The looser you have it, the more it's gonna open the nozzle here. It's gonna allow more air through and increase your PSI. The more you tighten it, it's gonna cut it down. In this case, I was looking for something that was affordable, compact, and easy to use, and this pretty much hit a home run in all aspects. After that, what you have to do is go ahead and put the battery pack compressor combo on there. Now, the instructions specifically state hold the airbrush in place and only turn the metal knob. Do not twist it from here because you can actually break the connector that goes from this coupler to the neck of here. So do not turn this. Hold these in place. These should basically stay somewhat stationary, and you can turn them a little bit, but they don't want you twisting it the whole way because you can actually break the connector. This is your power button here. You can turn it on. You see how it charged up? It's ready to spray. Now this does also come with the USB connector, although shame on me, I already charged this, the connector I left in the house. So it does have the USB connector. It plugs in right here. The other end just has a USB plug. This is fully charged, ready to go, very compact, very easy. I'm gonna show you how well it works. I have not used this yet, so I don't know how well it's gonna work, so we're gonna find out together. So now all we gotta do is just get our spray shelter set up here with the Wagner paint tent, get mixing some of the acetone in the putty, and start spraying this and see how well it performs. So let's go. When setting up your tent, find a nice area with nice circulation and ventilation. Your tent should pop right up. Throw your box fan, stick it in the back, get your air filter, throw it on there, turn your fan on. That way it sucks all those particles out and you're ready to go. All right, so one thing that we've already improved on here by setting up the spray shelter is increased ventilation. For any particles that may become airborne, any vapors, any fumes, versus spraying them right here and potentially bouncing back in your face, they're being sucked out of the back of the spray shelter. I've talked about spray shelters in the past. They're absolutely fantastic. I use them anytime I am doing any sort of paint work. And for the most part, there isn't a ton of vaporized fumes. But if you're trying to be safe, if you're trying to minimize the amount of potential things you're breathing in, getting a spray shelter with an exhaust on the back is definitely the best way to go. So we've got that set up. Now let's mix up our acetone.
Now when you put your respirator on, you want to make sure it's nice and tight. See how it's pushing my skin up here? That means it's creating a nice suction here and no vapors are going to get in. Acetone isn't as heavy as some other solvents, but if you are worried about it, this is basically the right fit. I spray all kinds of 2K clears, all kinds of paints. You probably see some of my guns and stuff laying around. You definitely want something that's very nice and form-fitting to your face.
Just popping my mask off for a second here. Sealed off, there's literally no odor here. You can see we've got the filter here. That's gonna suck any overspray that might go out. Again, this is a much safer method. There is a very low amount of overspray. However, the reason behind this video is because some people were concerned. So I'm just showing the 100% or maybe 99.9% proper and safe way to do this. We just turned on our battery and compressor here. Again, I'm wearing gloves. I'm gonna put my respirator on for a minute so I have a little bit of fan adjustment that I can do here. So I've never used this. This is the first time using it. I'm gonna do some test sprays on the box here and then get spraying it on this model. Another nice alternative for this method is brushing it on. So let's compare, shall we? I took a little bit left over of the 1-to-1 mix and I started brushing on, and I noticed immediately it was just way too runny, it was way too thin. So I went ahead and added more putty. So my recommendation is if you are going to brush it on, I would do it something in the range of a 4-to-1 or maybe even a 5-to-1. Just be very careful with how thick you make it. But you definitely don't want it watery, you don't want it runny. That's really just gonna take way too long and eliminate any sort of progress. So it is a very slow, controlled process. I do feel that spraying it, you can definitely get it a more uniformed application, and you can get it done a little bit quicker. Even with that 0.3 nozzle where I was kind of restricted, I still feel like it applied quicker and I had more control. However, I do understand why people use this method. I have used a similar method with just my filler primer and it works pretty great, but you really do have to be careful because if it starts running, it can fill in defined areas. You know, you do get the brush strokes, which, you know, like I said, it's not very uniform. You can see a pattern in there. However, this being Bondo glazing putty, it does sand down, you know, very easy. So the brush strokes I really wouldn't worry about too much. Those will sand right out. This was a pretty botched piece here. I seem to use all these spare parts that I just had a lot of Z banding and just weren't printed and finished too well. But overall, it did do a good job. Like I said, this is a thicker ratio when brushing it on, and that's typically what you want to do. You don't want it running. You know, you don't want it too watery because then you're just wasting time and you're wasting product. So what I'm going to do here is finish painting these areas on this little glove piece here. We're going to compare them to the spraying. We will also sand them down and hit them with filler primer and see which option fared the best. I brushed this side on, this side here and right here. You can't really tell a lot. I did have to put it on thicker. I ended up adding more glazing putty to it. What I'm noticing is where the acetone is kind of streaking, it's eating away, you know, at the putty. So it's as we're brushing, it's like we're thinning it down more and more because as that acetone is evaporating, it's breaking down the putty with it. You know, you can see the build capability here of the putty when it's sprayed on, and this is going to fill in a lot. Looks like the, you know, painting on may have filled it in a little bit better. However, the spray technique is more uniform and it's just more even. You know, you load this on here, you know, applying it with a brush and it runs down, and you've seen that in the video, is kind of getting runny. I'm actually going to sand this side here and then this side here and see which one looks better. So let me sand these down real quick. I'm just gonna hit them with some 400 and see how they look. So this side was the side we did where we sprayed, and this side was where we applied it with the brush. And you get it at the right angle. You can see it definitely filled things in. Did it do it any better than spraying? It's tough to, you know, fully decipher. I can say that I had to make the putty thicker on this side because it was so runny. So it seems very close. The benefit to spraying it on is the acetone is evaporating and all you're leaving is behind is the putty. So although the putty is thinner, because you can't make it too thick because it'll clog the airbrush, all that's being sprayed on here, and you can see by this, is just the putty. Whereas with this, the acetone is more concentrated, so as you brush it, you're kind of almost stripping and breaking down the putty in a sense, because that's what the acetone is doing, it's thinning it out. So as that goes across the surface and agitates it, you're almost in a sense very finely scraping and diminishing the putty. You know, you can see that the brush marks here, which those will sand away. It's one of the situations where it's just preference. I like spraying on bigger areas. I think it's quicker. You know what I mean? You can cover more surface area by spraying. Downside is obviously the PPE, the setup, the cost. You know, brushing it on though, you still need PPE. You know, some people mentioned, they said, oh, if you're brushing on, you don't need to wear PPE. Everything that we use in 3D printing, fillers, resins, putties, epoxies, solvents, they all need PPE. So to sit there and say you don't need PPE, it's not true. You should still use it. Does everyone know? I could see where brushing it in heavy areas that have heavy defects. Obviously this piece was complete garbage. I had terrible Z-banding. My rollers were loose as heck. Brush side filled it in pretty good. Spraying side filled it in pretty good. I think they have benefits. I think the spraying technique, it covers faster. With the brush, you can get into runs, can fill in these defined areas, which you really don't have that issue, you know, when you spray it on. If you apply this, both of these together in conjunction, you're gonna get great results. You know, you're not using super toxic, expensive resin that needs far more PPE than using acetone and putty. This sands down super easy, incredibly controllable. The great thing is, you know, even if you did, let's say you brush this on and you put it in too thick in here, you could take acetone with a brush and it would completely remove that. With resin, you're not going to. Once that resin's built up in there, it's there, you're done. So that is the beauty of using and reducing putty, whether it's brushed on or sprayed on. If you load it in a defined area too big, spray it on and then go over it with a toothpick and it would clean all this out. You know, or like I said, just take a brush and it would reduce it. I've mentioned that in some of my other videos. If you put glazing putty on too thick, just take acetone, it'll completely reduce it down. So I wouldn't say one is necessarily better than the other. I think one, you know, spraying has its pros and its cons, and the same thing with the brush method. I'm gonna give you my final thoughts and wrap this thing up. All right, everyone, well, that's it. That is a wrap for part 2 on my DIY spray putty method. A lot of good things I covered here. Trying to keep the first video short to focus more on the demonstration of it. For some things that were left out, so that was really the main goal of this video, and the importance of this video is to kind of explain some things, show some things, and just really explain, you know, safety of yourself and others around you. Something so often overlooked, and like I said, I'm a little bit guilty of it in the first video there. Explain things, a little bit more about acetone, a little bit more about the product, a safer way to do this method, covering all aspects of it. Hope you guys found benefit to everything that I covered here. Like I said, I do work with a lot of heavy solvents with things like paints and resins and coatings and all kinds of things. You know, as dangerous as they are, guys, it doesn't matter if you're using, you know, a spray can or something in an HVLP. All the stuff that we use can be very dangerous, so just proper PPE. This scenario is no different. As I stated, acetone is very widely distributed in a ton of different products. In low amounts, it is not as dangerous. Still want to make sure we take care of ourselves using proper PPE, proper setups. Don't be spraying this stuff in your bedroom or your garage or on your pets or your kids, anything like that. And obviously, if you guys have any questions, go ahead and drop me a comment. Obviously, that airbrush was pretty cool. I will make sure to leave a link in the description. Very nice piece, even with the 0.3 tip. There was a little bit of restriction there. It wasn't quite as big as I'd like, so I did go ahead and order a 0.5 tip, so I will do a follow-up video for that. However, it still sprayed very well, still really good results. I will be showcasing this method in other future builds, so you guys will have better visuals and better results on pieces that aren't printed so terrible. It seemed like every piece I did, both with the faceplate and that hand cover, they were both pretty beat up. Overall, guys, this method works. You know, with the airbrush in comparison to the brush method. Both are absolutely great. Big fan of Bondo glazing putty. So whether you do the brush method, whether you do the spray method, I think if you bring those two together, it's really an awesome way to finish your prints. A safety scale, it's much safer than using SLA resin. A lot more controllable in both these aspects. Obviously a little bit more with the brushing, but we also seen the benefits to spraying. A great method. If you're out there using it already, let me know how you like it. Make sure you drop me a comment. And if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Thank you so much to all my subscribers. That part 1 video went around. I gained a bunch of new subscribers. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I am going to be having a 3K sub giveaway. And hint, it has something to do with this video. If you are a subscriber, make sure you look out for that new subscriber giveaway video. I should have it up in about a week. I got a pretty busy weekend coming up here. Cinco de Mayo, so go ahead and celebrate. But I want to thank each and every one of my subscribers, whether you're new or old. Thank you guys so much. The channel continues to grow. Did this video specifically, for you guys too, because your well-being is just as important as mine. Yes, I have all the PPE and everything. You guys may not. So that's why I did this video. Hopefully you liked it, and thank you so much for subscribing. If you're not a subscriber and you're just seeing this video and you like all things 3D printing, DIY, cosplay, Marvel, collectibles, all that fun stuff that we do on the channel, go ahead and smash that subscribe button. Of course, Thanos, he's still coming. I had to put him on delay because I had to do this video. All you Iron Man fans, I also have Crashworks' new Alicia board. Super small, has all the same great features before. I'm gonna have the full tutorial, do that motorized face, hinge work, prep, installation, everything you need to get. I mean, look how small this thing is. This thing is tiny. They're so easy to put in your helmets now. So all you Iron Man fans, gonna have an awesome video coming around the corner for you too. So if you like any of those stuff, guys, make sure you are clicking that subscribe button and come back and see more. Stick a fork in part 2 because we're done. Go out and use this method. Drop me a comment. Let me know how you like it. And until next time, DW out. Later.